Good morning. It is time for Art in the AM, a couple minutes late this morning, and a series that I have been calling during the year of 2025, my Word of the Week. And I've been doing them in this little small journal, and it is a watercolor journal, which the paper has worked really well for all of the different ideas that I've been kind of putting in the journal. And it has this nice little piece of elastic to kind of hold it because it's getting a little full. I did count last week. There are 16 more pages in here, and I think it will just about finish out the week. Good morning, Lori. And today, what I'm going to talk about is another C word. So far during the month of July, we have done contradiction, which was this one, with the fun little pearlescent blue on there. And then the next week, I hadn't shown this one finished yet. I made this little pocket and put that in there, and I put the word on the back there, which is complexity. And it made that little pocket from some tags from clothing. If you have not started saving tags. And then each week, what I'm doing on the back of the page, I'm putting the definition of the word. I'm putting usually like synonyms, antonyms, maybe the color that's kind of associated with the word, and then some quotes. Today's word I don't have a quote for. I haven't looked one up yet. And I think that I probably talked a little bit about this other C word, but I'm going to talk about it today with some examples. I actually have, that was why I was a couple minutes late. I was printing out the examples that I have for composition. Composition is one of the things that I notice the most in people who are maybe just starting, maybe don't have an art background. Like I've gone to school to be an art teacher, right? Like they don't have any kind of a background of taking any kind of formal like classes or anything where they would have learned about composition. And they're creative. They can come up with the creative ideas, but they haven't figured out how within a page, within a frame, within a canvas, whatever they're putting art on, they haven't figured out how to make it all come together, to make it feel unified, to make it feel like it is visually interesting. And this is for if you're doing a landscape, if you're doing a portrait, if you're doing flowers, if you're doing like anything that's an entire composition. If you're just doodling, I don't want to say just doodling. If you're doodling, if you're practicing sketches, if you're even like trying out things in a little journal like this, you don't have to focus on composition that much. However, I do use a journal like this, a little small notebook, just a piece of paper to plan out my composition sometimes in just small little thumbnail sketches. So I'm going to show you about composition today. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you a couple of the projects that I have finished from the Create-a-thon. Tell me if you watched that last week. It was last Thursday inside of our Create-a-thon community. And there were 7 artists who presented 7 different projects. And I have finished 3 of the 6, the 7th one being mine. If you're not in that group, let me know. Just put Create-a-thon in the comments and I will know that you want to get into that group and be able to watch all 7 of those tutorials. They will be in that group for 1 month, and next Monday is when we're going to be drawing names from the people who have submitted their version, who have tried the projects and who have done the just their version of the tutorial that was presented. And we've already gotten lots of people submitting their versions of my project, and I've seen other people, for other people's projects. They've been so much fun to look at just how people interpret and how they put their own spin on it and how they use the tutorial as a spark for an idea. And I love seeing that. Yes, Robin says she puts the main item, but then like, what do you do with the background? So Robin, I've done 3 of them too. So very good. I'm gonna take a drink of water. And I'm going to go ahead and spin my book around here. So I'm kind of working in it. I'll be working it upside down for you. If you saw the project, the little painting that I did way back on Martin Luther King Day. Let's see if I can find that one for you in here. Well, it would have been like oh, I did this one. So I painted that upside down. And I don't think that I have put this one on YouTube yet, but I need to go back and do the ones in January back to there. But I'm going to go ahead and spin this down. And while I'm doing that, what do you think the definition of composition is? I've kind of given you a little bit of, you know, a couple of ideas. What do you feel like the definition for composition, like as it relates to art? Like, what do you feel like? What do you think the definition is? And I'll give it to you as I'm working here. So I will show you this. And I'm going to be working from this sheet here that I have of these different types of composition. These different ways to organize within the box here, within the frame. And I'm going to go ahead and make a little frame. This is how I kind of do thumbnail sketches. I just usually kind of draw them on here, but you can take, for the most part, we normally do rectangular compositions. So I'm just going to use this little rectangle as my frame for doing these little composition ideas. I have 10 different ones. So let's see if I can fit 10 different. Can I fit? Let's see. Let's kind of measure it out. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. I'm only going to get 9 on here. Let's see if I can maybe squeeze them together and get 10. I'm tracing with a micron pen here just so you can see it a little bit better. Normally I would do these little composition, these little thumbnails with a pencil. And I don't normally use an eraser when I'm doing these thumbnails because I just draw another one. You know, if I don't like how this composition looks, I'll just draw another. Oh gosh, I'm not even fitting 3 on that side there. I'll scoot this all the way up to the top. And I maybe could have fit more, maybe if I turned it portrait, like vertically. If I would have turned it vertically, I'll fit 3 on this one. That was just, I should have just made them touch. That's what I'm going to do on this one. So I will give you the definition for composition. I've already kind of told you what it is, but I will give you the actual definition. I'll put these like right together here. And maybe I can get one more over on that side that will be a vertical composition. It'll just be different. So a composition is just how you arrange elements, and in this case the elements of art, line and shape and color. We talked about those on one of the weeks. There are 7 different elements of art. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think I can get another one. I'm just going to do these 7 in here. And I'll figure out a way to label them. Maybe I'll just do numbers and then I'll list them over here. So I'm going to do oh, maybe there aren't 9 or 10. Anyway, I'll figure out how to label them and then put them on here. So it's the arrangements of the elements of art inside of a frame, which this is the frame. So whichever way your frame, whether it's vertical or horizontal like these, to create a visually appealing, balanced, unified image. And that is where I see the mistake that most people make. They just put things on there and they don't know how to arrange them, because the purpose of creating, well, I won't say the purpose, but one of the primary purposes when you are creating is to lead the viewer's eye around the composition. And you do that by how you arrange the elements. So let's just take this first one here, and they call this one the steel yard. And I will draw out the diagram of it, and then I don't know if I have some things around, maybe I'll be able to show you compositions, but you'll get the idea. The steel yard to me is kind of like an asymmetrical balance. And we talked about asymmetrical meaning it's balanced, but not evenly. And they draw it out to look like a balance, like almost like a teeter-totter, kind of looks like a teeter-totter. And on one side, you have this tall shape. That could be a tree. I'll show you the one on the paper. That could be a building, something that's tall and fills up a lot of this space. And on the other side, you have this short little tree building, something on the other side. So when you're looking at the composition, your eye kind of goes up this tall tree building, whatever this is over here, and you're kind of led over to this like space in here, and then this little small building. So I will show you on this one. This is the composition for what they're calling a steel yard. So you can see it's a tall tree, a little short tree, some grass, and just landscape kind of things there. But this creates there's almost this interesting tension between this one, because there's something that's very tall, and then there's the contrast of something very small. And we talked about contrast one week, which is a huge principle that you use in artwork to make everything come together. I'll show you this other one that's on here too. And if I can find out who did this and I can give them credit, I will post a picture of this. Would that be helpful if I posted a picture of these compositions? I mean, I'll have it on here, but this really gives a lot of examples. So here's another example of a fuller tree over here, and then a small little building. Looks like a little building over on this side. And again, it's this composition where there's this tension between these two things because there's a contrast, because there's two different things. So that one they're calling a steel yard, and that's the first one. The next one is what's considered a balanced composition, or they call it a balanced scales. And that's, kind of like the little this is gonna be fun to draw upside down here. We'll just kind of make this up. But it's the idea of the scales where they are even on both sides. And I will show you a couple of examples. Does that look like those scales? Like the scales where you put something in the little baskets and it's evenly weighed there. And then I always kind of think of this as, there's a little stand or something. But it's even on both sides, whereas this is symmetrical or asymmetrical. This is symmetrical, and it's even on both sides. So the examples that they gave here were like these mountains, right? there's other things in there, but this mountain or even these clouds that kind of fill up the sky, it's fairly even. Now, it doesn't mean that this tree looks exactly like this one, but they even each other out. They're about the same. They take up about the same amount of space. They're about the same height, and they kind of balance each other out. And the clouds or the mountain, it could be a house. Robin was talking about she places like the main thing in there and doesn't know what to do with the rest of it. And you have to think about the frame, because that's what I see a lot of times is the object, the focal point, the main thing that's in there. It doesn't take up enough of the space. So you have this really tiny little face, in the center, whatever it is, animal, flower, whatever, and then you have all the space around here. That tells me you just weren't thinking about the frame. You weren't thinking about the whole space that you're putting it in. I know this is like a big overview of composition, but the other one is a circular composition. And I'm just going to put it in this space down here, even though this, well, I don't think that I'll need to do it. I'm going to do it up in here. So it's a circular composition, right? But even notice how it's not a little tiny circle right in the center. It takes up a lot of the space. And this circular composition, you can see in a composition like this where the elements, the colors, the lights to darks, the values, they all kind of lead your eye around the circle, which gets you to look at all of the composition. And the two that are on here, I think these are all landscapes that they used. The two that are on here, this one kind of looks like a lake, right? A body of water. It could be, maybe an ocean where there are things in the foreground and things in the background. It's circular because it almost makes like, this one reminds me of a vignette where it's kind of darker, like on the corners, and it kind of forces your eye to look like right there in the center, right? And then this one is kind of circular because of the clouds. The clouds, because this is kind of smaller, it gets larger. This is overlapped. Overlapping is a huge piece of composition, because if this cloud was just floating here, this cloud was just floating, this one, and they were separated and there was no overlapping, it makes it very flat. Next time you look up in the sky, see if you see just a bunch of clouds that are all separated. There's depth in the sky, so you would have these clouds that are overlapping. If you feel like your composition is missing something, check and see if there's overlapping. Check and see if there's any overlapping in there. The next one, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do this upside down. It's an S composition. And I don't know that I could do an S upside down. So you have the O, and now you have the S composition. And this one, I kind of made the top part of it smaller than the bottom, but it's kind of like your eye is led around in the same way that this one is, but it kind of goes from side to side and then back on itself to make like this S in there. And I think a path, a stream, a river, a bridge, a lot of those different things. Well, a bridge is more straight, I guess. But the S composition, I think, works really well for things like that, like some kind of a stream where it kind of goes back on itself instead of just being kind of just straight, towards the front there. Or this one is like a path in the woods, I'm all the time taking pictures. Here around our house, we have 2 lakes and paths and, just the sidewalks in the neighborhood. Instead of a picture of just the sidewalk, just straight on, I'm always kind of looking for like the curves in the path and even some of the areas where I can kind of see like this S kind of curve where it goes like back on itself. So that's the S composition. Do you see how just having a structure to your composition and thinking about the space that you have on there helps to make a composition and puts the things together? It organizes those. If you are a little bit more on the logical side instead of the creative side, this probably makes you really happy because it's an organization. It's a structure to, it's almost like a right or a wrong to art. So, okay, we've got the O, we've got the S. Now we're going to do a triangle or like a pyramid. And this triangle, this could be a landscape where things are maybe a little bit more separated. Like I can picture a sun, you know, up here at the top. And maybe you have some things kind of in these two corners. You know, like there's two palm trees or something like on the sides or something like that. You know, so it's like the sunset scene, and then you have like two things over on the side, and you have the sun. This pyramid or this triangular one, it's similar to the O composition, but it's a little bit more bold because there's more of like these points. And this one is exactly like what I was talking about with a sun, you know, kind of two things on the sides. This one I think is a little bit harder to see, kind of like a triangular, but you can kind of see where the line of these trees kind of follows that triangle. And then this kind of does, but it's not exactly even, you know, so it's almost like this offset kind of triangle there. And when you do things like that and they're kind of offset, that does create some more interest. Whereas, you know, I think this is kind of static. It works pretty well for this type of, and I think that creates like a lot of depth, that there's water and trees and you know, a sun or something back there. I've seen really great compositions where this is like a bird, you know. But sometimes, to me, having something right there in the center makes it kind of difficult because it's not as interesting. It's more predictable. And to me, this triangular pyramid kind of composition is kind of like that. It's probably not one of the most dynamic. I find this S-curve kind of composition a lot more dynamic. This other one is a cross. And when I say a cross, like a cross, not across, like going across the page, the horizontal line can be at different places. So I'm going to place it kind of in the center, so it really is just like a grid, like a cross there. But, and this is getting a little bit more into composition, you can divide the composition up into thirds, and you can get a lot more interest. So if I just push this down or pushed it up, it would be more interesting. But let me show you. I really like this type of composition. You can also move this vertical line. This one here with the sailboat, and then you have the, you know, the horizontal, you know, the water line, the horizon line there. This kind of composition, I feel like, is one that is used a lot, but a lot of times people will just center that sailboat right in the middle. And I don't feel like that's the most interesting. The most, it just creates more interest if it's offset a little bit. So think about that too. You have to know the borders of your composition. If you have a canvas, that's pretty easy. You have to know the size of your paper, whatever that is, and try offsetting your focal point, your thing, you know, that you're putting in there. Try offsetting it a little bit to one side or to the top or the bottom. These trees here, I kind of see this as more of the focal point because there's more and because it's darker right here, but it does kind of balance out on both sides to have, you know, both of those on there. It's almost, you know, kind of like the scale one over here, where that, like the balanced composition. It has some other examples down at the bottom that I'll show to you too. The other one is a radiating line, and I really like this one. And you can have it go from the top and or the bottom. But think about, I mean, you're going to know what kind of composition, or, you know, what type of picture, you know, is this kind of composition, because even when I draw it out, right, it's a sunset. It's the sun here on the horizon line, and you have these radiating lines of light. And you can also have it, you know, from the bottom on there too. There are all kinds of, I'm sure that I could pull out some famous paintings that do this, but if you look at this radiating lines, here's kind of like the focal point. Oh, getting that little shadow in there. And then there are these lines kind of coming out. And not lines themselves, but the elements that are like formed into a line, right? So that's what these are coming up. Or even this one over here where the horizon line is pushed up, and then these lines, these paths, these, you know, they could be colors, they could be shapes, whatever this is kind of coming down that starts to form these lines. It's like these radiating lines coming out. Okay, one more here, and it is the L, or the rectangular composition. So it's kind of like on one side is the subject, the thing that's taking up the most space, and then you have like this bottom area here. And this works really well, I think, for some landscapes that are very dramatic. Like I went out to California in the desert and went to Joshua Tree National Park, I think is what it was called. And there were a lot of the Joshua trees, a lot of rock formations, a lot of things that it was kind of like this composition where they were really tall. We saw people that climbed up this rock. I don't even know. It must have been like 5 stories tall. I don't even know. And it went like straight up, and they just scaled to the top of this rock, and we heard voices, and they were just sitting there up on top of this rock. So, but that kind of a composition, and it even reminds me of the ones in here, these rocks, you know, kind of something really tall like that. And then the horizon line, and notice the horizon line isn't right in the middle. It doesn't just cut the picture in half. It's down towards the bottom. That's why it's an L. It's not, you know, right in the center. And then the same with this one over here. It has like some trees. And I just really feel like these are a very dynamic composition because it has this space over here. You know, because your eye's drawn to this because it's different than the space in here. And again, this one, the horizon line is down here at the bottom. So let me look in the bottom here, and it will tell me. This one is the first one that we looked at, which is the what they call it, the Steely Yard one, where it has like the little small area, and then it has this. To me, it's an asymmetrical composition. It's asymmetrically balanced because the little small thing balances out, even though they're in contrast to each other, this very tall. This one over here, they are calling this one an O composition because there's this space and your eye is kind of drawn around because of the shapes and just kind of the line that they follow in there. So it kind of creates this O going around in there. This one, they're saying is the S, even though it doesn't complete the S, right? Like here's the start of it, kind of comes around here, and it kind of doesn't finish off the bottom there, but you do start to get that curve back into there. This one down here at the bottom, obviously, I mean, that's the triangle, right? That big mountain. But you can see it's not exactly even on both sides. So even though it's the triangular composition, it's not even, because then that would be kind of boring, right? It wouldn't be as interesting. This one is the graph, or the cross is what they called this one. So you can see it crosses, but the horizon line is down lower. It's not right in the center, kind of how this one shows. It's down a little bit lower. And then this last one here is the radiating line one, where it has like these lines kind of going out from like wherever the center is there. I'm going to label these, and this is just in black and white, but you can definitely use color to create the composition and lead your eye around. You can create contrast to lead your eye around. There are a lot of ways to have the composition so that it feels unified, so that it feels just balanced. And not balanced meaning even, but it feels like there's this balance of lights and darks and all of the different elements of art. If you want to see the elements of art one, because I feel like, well, there's a couple from that month where I did the elements of art, that really goes into how you can use all of those. And when you learn those, then you can put those into the composition. So I hope this was helpful. Lori said it's very informational. Lori, I'm going to see if I can find who did this, and if I print this and I can credit them with this, then I will make it so that you can be able to print it out and be able to use it. I will look up, I just wanted that as reference for myself. So if you would find that helpful, I'll see if I'm able to use it in that way. I want to be respectful of the person who, you know, came up with that little informational sheet there. So I will look into that. I'm going to spend some time today working on my other projects for the Create-a-thon. And then I have something else that I want to tell you that is coming this Friday. I did the lettering and I gave 2 practice sheets. So if you have not gotten these, if you're not in the Create-a-thon group yet, or if you haven't gotten these, they are still available in my guide, which is number 1. And I have seen so many people use that and come up with ideas of how they can just use all kinds of different people's names and where they can put them. And they've been so much fun to see everyone's versions of how they use the lettering that I showed. And then I did this one, which is my friend Tony Landis. It is her palette knife. And you can see that this is a modeling paste. Maybe if I put it just like that. So it's 3-dimensional. There's dimension to that, which made it so much fun to put the gold on there because the gold only hit the top parts. So that one was super fun. I think Tony is on here. I don't remember right off. I believe her guide is number 6. I think that would be right. And then this one I did is my friend Laura McNeely's project. And she had a name for it, and I don't remember right off what the name, like Walk into the Light, maybe? Hers is guide number 3. So you will find this project a very surprising tool that we use to be able to do this one. And it was a lot of fun. And then the last one that I've done is this one, which is a leather journal, and it has the pages already in there, and it has little dividers, and I made it for family recipes and burned into the leather the suede, whatever the material is, and then burn these flowers. So this is actually burned into the surface, and that one was a lot of fun. That is my friend Debbie Hightower, and she does all of the burning, and it was so much fun to be able to do the different projects. I still have Terry Broyles project, which is a cracker, and I'm looking forward to that one. I have to go get some supplies from downstairs that I keep with my Christmas things, because I didn't have those all pulled together up here. And then I still have an ornament to do from my friend Loretta Bell, and I have one more. I have Cheryl's, which I am waiting on some shells to do her project. So those are the 3 that I still have left to do. And is that right? Yes, those 3 still left to do. And am I forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting one. Retta and Terry and Sharon. No, that's 3. So anyway, I'm going to work on doing some of those today. And then the last thing that I wanted to tell you is on Friday, July 25th, be looking for an email. And if you're not on my email list, you need to be on my email list. And I'm going to be sending out something that I have never done before. And I won't tell you too much about it. You just have to be on the lookout. It will probably go out at about 8 a.m. So be looking in your email at about 8 a.m. And it's going to be kind of a continuation of a little Christmas in July celebration. And you'll just have to wait until Friday. If you're not on my email list, just put email in the comments here, and I will get you over something to be able to get you onto my email list in exchange for something to pass along to you, and you can be on the lookout for your email on Friday. Robin, Loretta Bell's project that she did was ornaments. So yes, that was the project number, I want to say 4. I think her guide is number 4. And if you're not in that group, just put Create-a-thon in the comments and I can make sure that you get into that group. So thank you for stopping by here on Art in the AM for my Word of the Week little series that I am doing. I do put all of these over onto YouTube, and they are in a playlist. So you can go back and watch all the ones back to February, and then I still need to get a couple of the ones from January. So you can see the whole list of all of the Word of the Week videos, if you've missed any of them, in a playlist and you're not distracted by the feed here on Facebook or anything like that. And those are usually there within about 24 hours over on YouTube. And if you're not subscribing over on YouTube, you can just put YouTube in the comments and I will make sure and get that link to you. So you can go over there and follow. I try to do some little short videos over there, and I have my videos that I've uploaded from Facebook over in there, and every day kind of adding some more content over on the YouTube if you'd like to see it over there. So thank you for stopping by. I hope that what I showed you about composition maybe spark some ideas to get you creating and just learning a little bit more about how to make a piece of artwork come together and feel unified and direct the viewer's eye around the painting or piece of artwork that you do. So I will see you next Monday, and I will have the last C word, and I don't remember right off what it is. So you'll have to come back next week and see what it is. So I'll see you then.